What Intrepid people do is they go into environments where things are unknown and probably a little dangerous. And they go in not just with bravery, but with a little bit of aplomb. They go in with a little bit of bravado because they suspect there might be some adventure there too. And I think that
Yeah.
that is the kind of attitude that if you're going to be crazy enough to lead a company through one of the most disruptive moments in software to ever happen, you've got to be intrepid, right? So I
Yeah.
think that helps.
Hi, welcome to Slideshow. My name is Dave Hayward. I'm the founder of Europa Creative Partners. I'm very, very excited about this week's guest. I have Laura from Descript here. Laura, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Laura Burkhauser. I'm the CEO of Descript.
It's a bit meta because we're actually recording it, of course, on Descript, and
Mm-hmm.
it will be edited on Descript. And I was just saying to Laura just before the pod started that I'm a recent convert, huge fan of Laura on LinkedIn. If you aren't already, go follow her. And so I started my Descript journey about 2 months ago. But we are here to talk about something else. We're going to talk about surviving the AI hype. But what inspired you to put this deck together?
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, Dave, first of all, very dangerous to tell me that you became a Descript customer after following me on LinkedIn and reading my content because it really just
Yes,
incentivizes me to keep putting out just totally insane content.
gotta do
But
it.
but I think that's exactly, I mean, that actually is a really nice segue into where this deck came from. Like, okay, you and I are both spending time on LinkedIn or other surfaces on the internet. And I am sure that that means that 10 to 100 times a day, we read a headline or a sentence that feels so huge and so scary as to be unbelievable. But then it's like maybe it is believable and maybe I'm crazy and maybe I don't know what the future holds and everyone else does. And it just like starts to stir this real fear, I think, inside of people, right? You go on X or on LinkedIn and it's like, we'll all be members of a permanent underclass in 3 months because AI is already becoming your lawyer and you don't even realize it. Like, it's just, it's stuff that
Mm,
really is designed to create like an amygdala response. And it, as someone who kind of needs to be on these surfaces and who needs to keep up with the really exciting and very real advances in AI and in technology, I've had to spend some time thinking about like, how do I do that without losing my mind? How to survive the AI hype, how to read the AI hype, how to translate and interpret the AI hype without losing my mind.
We've got almost sort of like the political horseshoe theory. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's where you get extreme versions of left and right start looking like each other, right? And
Yeah.
I kind of feel like AI hype's gone that way. You've got the AI hypists who are like, AI is going to be able to take out your rubbish or, it's going to change everything. And then you've got the AI doomers and they're starting to look very similar. It's really hard to sort of pass through that in an intellectual way rather than an emotional way. Like you said, it's sort of all the amygdala hijack. What we really want to be doing is thinking about this with our prefrontal cortex.
That's exactly right. I totally agree with you. There's like these two sides. There's the doomers and kind of the hypers. And I think that if all you're doing is like consuming content from both of those types of people, it feels like it's impossible to have a reasonable perspective on this stuff, and it's impossible to find people that are willing to have like a more reasoned conversation. And so this is a very concrete tool that I use when I find myself in a doomer or a hyper conversation to try to bring it into the realm of the real. And yeah, so that's what I thought I'd talk a little bit about today. Since I
Mhm.
very quickly made them in Gamma, a fun creation
Nice,
tool
love
earlier
gamma.
today. So we're
Yeah.
gonna see what happens here. What's the first thing I
Yeah,
do?
it's totally. Let's go. Let's go. There's no net. No net.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So first of all, okay, why does this stuff exist? Why do people keep making this kind of content telling us that the end is nigh? And my answer to that is like, because it works. And I think there's like a cynical way to say that it works. And I definitely do want to make that cynical point. But then I think there's like a more in good faith way that you can say that it works. So the cynical point is just like, look, nuance doesn't get clicks. No one who writes like a 30 paragraph on one hand, on the other hand, and here are the shades of gray LinkedIn post is like going viral. And in fact, like even the clips, like there are really nice conversations with experts that exist in podcasts like this one where people can have more nuanced conversation. And then, of course, we're highly incentivized to find like the 1 5-second clip of me saying like, AI is going to take your job. And then like, it's like, oh, that's the hero clip. Gotta put that out there. And then that becomes the only thing that someone consumes. And it's like, well, Laura Burkhauser said this. And it's like, yeah, I said that as part of a 5-paragraph, much more nuanced take. So that's kind of like the one thing that we all know is happening, right? For like that's why hype gets printed, is it gets engagement, and we know that.
You're an AI company essentially, and I imagine that you have staff members in different steps in the journey, right?
Yes, absolutely. It is. I think that, and like you said, it's very hard for it to not get very emotional, right? But I'd say that Descript, first of all, Descript is AI native. Like we were created about seven or 8 years ago now. And from the very beginning, we had the thing that made Descript kind of blow up initially. And the thing that people still love about it is the transcription based editing. So you can drag in your, 40-minute podcast file or your 10-minute video file. And even if you're not creative, you've never touched a timeline in your life, you can just edit the transcript exactly like you'd edit a doc, and it edits the video. And then you can do things like, add in words that you forgot to say, and it will let your voice, if you give permission, your voice can say them and your lips can move to say them. You can remove filler words and word gaps. You can add generated B-roll if you want to. You can add captions, all the things you need to go from I looked into a phone and I said some words to like, wow, I look pretty good up there. I look pretty good up there. Yeah. So it's this really, it's been kind of AI native since the very beginning. Transcription-based editing is AI, but there's something about generative AI that has really started to bug people. And I think it's partially because like there wasn't a discourse. When Descript was founded, we were made with AI, but we actually didn't put AI on any of our marketing surfaces because it just wasn't a thing. Like no one knew what it was yet. And so people didn't have emotional opinions about it. And so when creative people used Descript, they were just like, this is awesome because it saves me time. I get to spend time on the things that I care about, and I don't have to spend time on the things that I don't care about, like looking at a sound wave and finding every time, trying to like guess that this is a sound wave where I'm saying and then split on this side of the sound wave and split on this side of the sound wave and delete that sound wave, right? No one cares about preserving that part of a creative workflow. But now this discourse has been created around AI that makes it political, it makes it emotional, and it makes it about our identities, and it makes people very insecure. And so now you do have like a burgeoning group of people who really hate AI. And I think like there are some really valid reasons why. And I think like some of the valid reasons why is you have other people over here showing like fully generated tip to toe, like, no human has put any thought into its slop, and saying like, hey, isn't this cool? Isn't this really amazing? This is the future. And you have creative people looking at this and saying, like, if this is a future, I want out, right? Like, that's not good. And I just think, like, we're having the wrong conversation. I don't even think we should talk about generative media as being the future until we get really creative people who know how to tell a story using it. I think, for like, one of the things that I say a lot is, like, when Finding Nemo came out, maybe you had a few people who were like, I really miss cell animation, right?
Yeah.
But you didn't have like this huge political movement of people saying like, cell animation, where did it go? Mostly you had people saying like, wow, what an amazing story. And I think what generative AI is missing right now is like, it's missing its Finding Nemo, like a real human who cares about detail, creating amazing things with this stuff. Anyways, we're on a tangent.
I find technology anxiety really interesting because, like, in New Zealand, for example, we had so this is going to date me horribly, but we had a campaign to stop people taping music on cassettes, and it was like, you're stealing IP. It sounds absolutely ridiculous now, but the beat up was real.
Yeah, I think that we're going to get through this moment. And at
Yeah.
the end of this moment, we're going to see that human creativity survived this moment, that actually many more people were able to access their creativity and tell their stories because these tools have gotten into their hands. And I think like that's good. I'm excited about that. And I also think that part of like the slog we're going to have to get through is a bunch of people pretty cynically creating slop content and inundating our feeds with it until we're like, oh my God, if I have to see one more fake creator avatar ad trying to sell me a handbag, I'm just going to throw my phone out the window. Like both of those things are going to happen. A lot of really dumb stuff is going to be made with this that tries to sell us stuff. And a lot of really, really cool stuff is going to be made with this that helps us tell stories we could never tell before because the technology is fairly amoral and because people are people.
Yeah, talking to marketers and creatives around the traps, the one thing that's come up a lot is briefs. Suddenly, clients are delivering briefs that are just like 8 pages long. And the tyranny of the brief has always been a thing, right? But now there's this new dimension to it where people come to you not only with the challenge and the problem and all that, but they've actually figured out exactly how to do the marketing. And it's all vibe coded and nonsensical and also really is limiting creativity. So I think you're right. It's kind of affecting the whole jam now.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to have to learn new ways of working with each other. Yeah. I think there are going to be a lot of new challenges in the workplace too. I don't know if you found that this is, are you mostly a solopreneur or do you work on a team?
No, I work in, I've got a small team. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
So we're
great.
about 9 of us. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know if this has happened to you. This happened last summer and led me to write a now somewhat infamous memo called Human Collaboration in the Age of AI at Descript. And that
Right.
is that getting, I started getting what I call work slop, which is like PRDs or strategies that have a lot of those nice like line breaks in them, the full takeover
Yeah.
lines, which no human has ever used, and just looked like you hadn't like they just had bad false context in them. And it led me to say like, look, the act of writing is actually two acts. The act of writing is, yeah, the act of putting what you think into words, but before that, the act of writing is also figuring out what you think. And like, I think that delegating the act of turning your thinking into words can be at times slightly tacky, but I think you're allowed to be tacky at the workplace. Delegating discovering what you think to another entity that is not you and then claiming that it is yours is actually like a severe lack of judgment, and like that is not
Yeah.
allowed in the workplace.
No.
So so the first part of writing, which is figuring out what you think and you have conviction around, you need to do that and you need to own it, every part of it. You need to sign your name to it. And then if you need,
Yeah.
Claude to get you the rest of the way there in like formatting your document, getting your words out, there are some workflows that I can suggest.
Yeah. It's almost like going back to sort of the Harvard Business School. They wrote a really great book on better business writing. I don't know if you read it, but it's something that I go back to all the time.
Oh
And
yeah.
they talked about the stages. There's like 4 stages, and one of those stages is called the madman. And that's when you're really just trying to form the idea and you sort of pinball around. It's not really for external consumption. It's about shaping your idea before you move to the next stage, which I think is called the architect or something like that. Yeah.
Hmm. That's so interesting. And it's like AI will have like I again like I want to plant myself firmly in between the person that's
Yeah.
like don't work with AI and the person that's like just
Yeah.
have OpenClaw do it for you, and say like I think there's a role for AI in each of those stages, but I think there's also a role for you in each of those stages. Yeah. So anyways, that's exactly the kind of nuance that doesn't get clicks. But I also think that like it's not that these people are just like cynical algorithm jackers, though some are. I think that like some of this stuff, the specifics aren't really the point to the author, right? Like they're trying to sound an alarm, and the specifics are actually going to bog down their alarm. Like what they're trying to do with their work is just get people thinking. And so sometimes being really divisive or saying there are only two paths when like there are always 67 paths plus, it's just helpful in ringing a bell, in like getting people listening and getting them talking. And if that's what you're trying to do, then that probably is the right way to do it. There's a reason why politicians speak in talking points and why probably I'll never be elected to be president of the United States, because I can only speak in paragraphs. So I think that it's useful for for these lightning rod folks that get the conversation going to kind of talk at that level in these kinds of divisive, stark bullet points. But then it's up to us. It puts the burden on us to become a translation layer from hype to action. Just because it's hype doesn't mean it's total BS. But just because it's hype also doesn't mean you should take it 100% at face value. Because if you do, you'll start running around in a circle with your arms waving, saying, I'm out of a job, I'm out of a job, I'm out of a job. And that's just not the truth, you know?
One thing I've noticed a lot, I mean, I cannot believe the transformation in my work since I started adopting AI probably 3 or 4 years ago. And I'm capable of as a solo person or with a small team is it's just even now, even in the last 6 months, is changing everything for the better. But what I wouldn't say is that our workload's got any lower.
Yeah.
Because the thing is that the rising tide lifts all boats. So, our competition is working just as hard. And if they start cutting headcount and stuff like that, then we have an advantage, So it's a really, really, like you say, it's a paragraph. It's not a series of statements.
I think that's right. I mean, we've definitely noticed that too. So at Descript, we've fully adopted a ton of AI coding tools, and yet we feel like we need to hire engineers even more urgently than we did 3 months ago, because we also have a back of the AI hype that I read. And I also think that I am not yet convinced that, on the scale of huge changes, that this is definitely at least of the level of impact that the invention of the internet was, the rapid adoption of the internet was, which has had a huge and cascading impact on our economy, on the labor market. But if you were born even only in the last 35 years, we've already had a couple of really huge moments like this. And it's not yet clear to me that this is an order of magnitude higher impact than the internet or something.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I remember getting a haircut. That's when I had hair, and the barber saying to me, yeah, listen, what you need to do is go home, get all of your books and throw them out, because there's this new thing coming along. It's called the internet, and it's going to chat. You're not going to need books. We're not even going to have libraries. This was the sort of the talk at the time, and it was a genuinely transformative technology. But I think generally speaking, what my take on it is that generally people overestimate its short-term impact when you're having a transformation, and they underestimate its long-term impact.
Exactly.
And I think AI is there.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that because in some ways we are still living in the wake of the changes that happened from the internet, right? It's opening up the internet led to social media. That's changed a lot of our politics. That's changed our media forever. And it's just continuing. It's not like it happens over 3 years and then you kind of know. It's it happens over 30 years. It happens over 100 years. And I think that's really what we should be buckling up for and I'd rather have us really thinking about that and how we build into and solve the 30-year problem instead of really panicking about a 1-year problem that may or may not come, which is what the article that kind of spurred this was this is going to be a pandemic moment. A pandemic moment, if you look at labor charts from the pandemic and unemployment from the pandemic, and I've been looking at some because in the New York Times today, we're talking about how new hires are having a harder time getting jobs. Actually, people don't think it's because of AI right now. They think it's just because of the slowing economy. And they were showing this on a chart. And I was like, oh, this is going to be fun. I graduated in 2008, 2009. And so I'm I wonder how this compares to, for me, the most fun time to graduate with, as you mentioned earlier when we were off camera, a German literature degree. Imagine graduating from college with a German literature degree in 2008, 2009. And I'm okay, where does it compare to that? And I'm okay, it's still better than it was when I graduated. And then you see this giant thing and you're oh, what's that? Oh, that's 2020. And so if someone says like,
Yeah.
we're entering a pandemic moment, I'm thinking like that is the chart that this person is
Yeah.
implying we're going to see. Is that what we're all talking about?
I don't think so. Yeah. Well, look, I'll take your German literature degree and I'll raise you a fine arts degree with painting. That's my degree.
Do you have
And
can I see the value
yeah,
of this degree somewhere?
yeah, I do, but not in this room. Actually, I do. Actually, I'm gonna have to take something off the wall. I might show you at the end because it
Okay.
might involve some logistics and stuff like that.
Okay.
At
All
least
right.
I'm wearing jeans, so that's good. I'm wearing pants, so it's the main thing. But yeah, well, definitely. I graduated in 2000, which the job opportunities at the time weren't exactly screaming for a fine arts degree. But I actually spoke at a careers and marketing summit last week or the week before. And I kind of think non-linear careers is what it's all about. Certainly
Hell
I
yeah.
ended up leaving art school and importing welding equipment. And then I worked for Walt Disney and on a really terrible TV show. And then I got into coffee.
Sounds so
Uh,
boring and conventional now by comparison. Usually
I
I get to
don't
be the
think so. I've
weirdo.
seen your LinkedIn. Yeah, no, absolutely not. I've seen what you've done. It's amazing. Yeah, amazing career that you've had so far, So I'm a bit jealous. So yeah, totally.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, there are some people who know what jobs are out there and available to them when they're in college. And then there are those of us that major in German and the fine arts. And we have to figure out in our
Yeah,
20s, like, what are the jobs? Which ones can I
yeah. Totally. Turns out that the world isn't waiting for another ad tech expressionist.
have? So, okay, this is where I get into my little tool, which is called a sandwich bet. And this is when I feel like I'm having a conversation with someone and we're sort of looping into the doom cycle or the optimism cycle. The 80% of all communication will be through, like, I don't know, generative avatar media, or there won't be any white collar jobs in the future, kind of, where you're like, whoa, okay, oh, wow, that's a big change. I like to get to, all right, can we make a bet about this? I bet you a sandwich. What's your sandwich bet? What do you think is going to happen by when? And if you're right, I'll buy you a sandwich.
Yeah.
That's the sandwich bet.
Well, we actually here, after your LinkedIn post about the sandwich bets, I did a post about it and I also wrote about it in my newsletter, Bright Objects. And I got people to send in their sandwich bets. So I
Oh
have
my
some for
God.
you. Yeah. Yeah, so one of them was from Mark Lawrence, who's one of the leading literacy guys here in New Zealand. He's an amazing communicator, and he reckons that by the end of 2027 there'll be 10% less jobs in entry level jobs. That was his bet. So slightly doomer, but very specific. Yeah.
Okay.
So people coming out of college or what we call university, they would be less. There'll be less opportunity for them compared. This is the key point compared to senior roles.
I think that's a good one. That meets all of the criteria. I think we can. I don't think that is unreasonable. So not 10 percentage points, but a
Yeah.
10% reduction in employment or in new jobs created.
Oh, now you've got me. I think it's in employment. Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. Another one that we had more optimistic. This came from, I forget who this came from, but I stole it and I claimed it as well. And that is that by the end of 2028, it all seemed to be about jobs. 2028, we will have 1.2 times the amount of jobs that we have now.
So
So
this is the other reason why I love a sandwich bet, is I think it helps you like
yeah,
see that reasonable people can with the same information disagree, and that helps you understand
yeah,
that like the future is not kind of predetermined. It's not like all the smart people know that X is going to happen, and if you think Y is going to
yeah,
happen, then you're some kind of dum dum who hasn't like read the right posts or something like that. Yeah, that's
yeah,
exactly why I love it. I think like I see posing a sandwich bet in the middle of like a conversation where people are, kind of doom spiraling, takes you from like vague fear and a lot of rhetoric into actually like the first thing I notice is like the tone shifts. Like you stop being in like, kind of like this, and you start being kind of like
Yeah.
this. I wonder. You get a little bit more playful. You start to be more friendly. You have like a rivalry thing going. Like, I don't know, Dave. I don't think so. It's going to be more like this.
Yeah.
But you also get really specific. And I think the low stakes claim of the bet really helps you get there. And we use them at Descript for a lot of things, by the way. I'll sometimes, like, if a team is working really hard on something and then I'm like, okay, guys, actually, I'm really sorry, but I need you to work on this other thing. But here's the deal. This is going to increase, like, the number of exports that this is going to increase new user exports by 10%, or I owe you all a sandwich, right? And that's my way of saying, like, this is why I'm doing this thing that feels disruptive, that's randomizing. But
Yeah.
I'm going to own that this is what success looks like. I think we can all agree that that would be an exciting thing to achieve. And I'm sure enough on it that I'm
Yeah.
going to stake my name on it, right? Not in a way where I'm like, I should be fired, right? Like, that's too scary. Now I'm really freaked out. But like I owe y'all a sandwich if it doesn't happen is like my team saying like, wow, okay, Laura really has conviction here.
Yeah, we interviewed an expert on conflict. In fact, it's the latest podcast to come out with Lisa
Ooh.
Oakley. And she, one of the things that she talks about, which I think you've really neatly surmised, which is you don't need to hit a conflict head on all the time, right? And what you've essentially done, you're the boss, you've made a decision, which is a rational decision, but people are going to feel uncomfortable about it because people love routine, or maybe they're really invested in what they're doing and all that kind of stuff. So what you're really doing there is you're kind of you're depersonalizing it for a start. You're sort of saying this is because, we have good reason to think that this might be like a real game changer for us. But also I'm gonna put a stake in it. It's a low stake, but it's a very delicious steak.
Sometimes a literal steak if it's a steak sandwich.
Totally. Well, one of the things about the sandwich bet experiment that I did with all the people is that I didn't get that many sandwich bets, but I did get a lot of discussions about sandwiches. So a lot of people sent in what sandwich that they'd like to put up, but forgot to actually mention what
People
the bet
love
was.
sandwiches. That's another like real unlock of the sandwich bet is that the sandwich is something
Yeah,
every
yeah.
culture has invented because it's really just a great
Yes.
carb, meat slash veggies, carb is just a beautiful God-given treat for all of us.
Yes. Yeah. Well, down here we have Vogels toast, which is just amazing. It's and that everyone mentioned Vogels toast in the sandwiches that came through, at least from the Kiwis anyway.
I really gotta get out to New Zealand. Huh?
You gotta come. You gotta come. You talked about running for president. I mean, we've got our own elections happening here. I reckon you've got a big enough platform. You could probably be prime minister, and you should come down and run. And I think it's in
Yes,
November.
yes, yes. Amazing. I'm really excited. Yeah, I wanted to just quickly show like how this played out at Descript. I won't spend too much time on it because you brought some excellent sandwich bets about the AI replacement kind of theory. And that's like we read this article about how AI is going to maybe destroy all white collar jobs forever at the speed that the pandemic disrupted labor markets. We were having an unproductive doomer oriented conversation and I just went into the Slack and was like, "Hey, okay, who wants to make a bet with me about the labor market? Like what time horizon, how dramatic, like let's get concrete." And this started with, an opening offer saying like, okay, yeah, maybe it's that unemployment rates are going to hit 5% or 10%. And then this person self-corrected and was like, actually, no, that's not going to happen in just like a year or two. It's going to be job openings. It's
Yeah.
the same thing your AI research friend came up with. It's going to
Yeah.
be job openings. That's going to be a better metric. If it's within the next couple of years, then I think maybe it's that non-farm job openings will be down 23% by the end of the year. So even more
Oh yeah,
dramatic
that's
than
nice.
what your friend predicted. But I think like, great. Now what can we do? It's like we have that. It's in the Slack annals. Like we can go back and look at that at the end of the year and say like, did that happen? Did it not? We can also start to see ahead of time if things are starting to trend that way and start to think about how that shapes our business strategy, how that shapes our product strategy. But it gives us a much clearer target to point our conversation at and to point our planning at than just like an impending gray cloud of doom, if that's the conversation that you're having. Yeah.
Yes. Well, what is amazing is what I was about to ask you has now been answered by the slide, which is a sign of a good deck, so to speak. And just bear in mind that I have a Kiwi accent. So when I say deck, I mean slide deck, it's,
Oh, the signs of a good deck.
yeah.
That's fantastic.
If you were Daniel Kahneman, you'd say that it's probably more about shifting into system 2, or I always forget which system is which, but I think system 2 is the slow moving one, right? The prefrontal cortex, the thinking,
Yeah,
not the
I think
not
that's
your brain.
right.
Yeah.
But that's exactly right. It shifts you from reacting into thinking, which just gets you in a much better head state to actually solve problems. Many problems are solvable. I have a lot of optimism. I'm long on humanity's capacity to solve incredibly hard problems if pointed in the right direction. And again, I think about the pandemic, which you saw a lot of things to make you feel real depressed about humanity during and after in the fallout of the pandemic. But we also saw the ability to create a vaccine in less than a year if you point your resources at it, say like go figure this out. And like that, those kind of like scientific breakthroughs in the heat of the moment, to solve a major human crisis. I mean, nothing fills me with more hope for our future than that.
But it's probably helped by the fact that you are clearly a great problem solver, right? I was seeing some interviews with it. Is it Andy, who was the former CEO before you?
Oh, Andrew. Yeah.
Yeah, Andrew. It's a very Kiwi thing to call him Andy. All right, Andrew. And he was saying that he knew 3 years before you became CEO that you were going to be his successor. And how did that come about? What do you think it was that you were doing or working that kind of inspired him to think that?
I don't know. And I'll say it's a hard question to ask a person because I think it's like before Zoom made us look at our own damn faces every second of the day, I would tell you that like you probably know more about what my face looks like than I do because you probably see it more
That's
than
true.
I do. And I think that's the same with like I don't know what it's like to work with me or what works about it and what doesn't because I've never had the pleasure of working with or for myself. But I'll say that like I like to think that in this moment where a lot of things are changing, there it can be a desire to hide and to pretend it's not happening. And there can be a desire to pretend that you know everything that's happening and that you are in complete control over it, right? And I think like in this crazy moment that we are in, the attitude that I seek to have is the word that I keep coming back to is intrepid. And intrepid is one of these words that's related to the word courage. You often hear about like an intrepid explorer or an intrepid reporter. And what intrepid people do is they go into environments where things are unknown and probably a little dangerous. And they go in not just with bravery, but with a little bit of aplomb. They go in with a little bit of bravado because they suspect there might be some adventure there too. And I think that is the kind of attitude that if you're going to be crazy enough to lead a company through one of the most disruptive moments in software to ever happen, you've got to be intrepid, right? So I think that helps.
Wow, that's great. One of the other things that came across when I was researching for this podcast is that you clearly think a lot in frameworks and talk a lot about how to do that as a way of constructing scaffolding around a problem or a concept or a thing. And I really like that because I think what that's getting to is really almost like the Serenity prayer, right? It's actually about just trying to figure out what you can control. What is it in my sphere of influence that I can control? What do I know and what do I not know? And what do I not know that I don't know? The Rumsfeld thing,
Oh yeah.
And that
the
is,
Rumsfeld,
that's how you sort of start getting to here, which is, solutions, possibilities, actions. I think humans are simultaneously amazing and not amazing at the same time. We often misunderstand where our agency begins and ends. I could barely control myself, let alone someone else, right? And yet at the same time, when we work together well, amazing stuff happens, like you said.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. I do think, and that's one of the things that moving from being a VP of product to a CEO, sometimes people ask me like, what's the difference between those jobs? And one of the biggest differences is just like how the ratio of how much you can impact something and how responsible for it you are. When you're a product manager or a VP of product, you are responsible for a lot, but you also own all of the levers that help you like achieve those things. And so there's a very like
Right.
simple equation of like if I just throw myself more into this, like I can make this product happen. And when you're the CEO, accountable for every aspect of a company's success, but your ability to control every aspect of a company's success, it's just not there. That you do have to become
Right.
very, very familiar with this, like with both like the fight and the surrender to
Yeah.
the things you cannot fight.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's that paradox actually that often by surrendering, you actually regain control. We're just about out of time. It's been amazing to have you here. Is this your first Kiwi podcast?
It is. I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
hopefully not my last. Now I want to be a
No.
part
Well,
of the New Zealand, podcast circuit.
there's a thriving scene down here, and we'd love to, if you want to get away from the US and come down to New Zealand, come and hang out, and you'll have an amazing time. You've got a turnkey group of friends here for you.
Amazing. I will absolutely take you up on that. I would love to come to New Zealand, and there's nothing more fun than going to a place you've never been before and already having friends there.
Thanks so much, Laura. It's been an absolute pleasure. We will keep the conversation going about sandwich bets. I think we haven't even scratched the surface and the enthusiasm for both sandwiches and sandwich bets. So, and thanks for taking the time. I am now going to nervously edit this on your platform, and
Oh my
hopefully
gosh.
we get some great results. I've got my Hobie
Uh,
Underlord. He's going to help me. I will put links to your LinkedIn in the show notes. And like I said, I absolutely adore following you. So please keep up the content. It's great.
woo,
I don't know
woo,
how you
woo.
find the time, but yeah, it's absolutely. I'm one of the sad people that actually kind of loves LinkedIn. I always think it's a really cool place. And
Yeah. There's a lot of good stuff on there. There's a lot of crazy stuff on there. There's a lot of good
totally,
stuff on there, like most of the internet.
just like anywhere, yeah, you just find your corner, find your tribe, and hang out with your fellow travelers.
Yeah.
So on the note of fellow travelers, I'm going to let you get back to your day. I am actually technically in the future, right? So
Oh,
because we are in, so I can't tell you the lottery numbers, but I can tell you you're going to have a great day today.
all right. I'll take your word as gospel then. Have a wonderful day yourself. I,
Yeah,
I don't know what's going to happen to you,
thank
but I
you.
suspect good things if karma's real.